Okay, I think we have enough that we can get started, and those who come in later can always do the replay. Hello, everyone. This is Rick Bantelman. Thank you so much for joining. I'm pretty excited about 6.1. From a sales perspective, we put in a lot of things that I requested based on customer feedback. So it's always exciting when we can do that. Also, just to let you know, we are recording this session for your playback if you'd like to share it with other people in your organizations. And also, if people are unable to attend, we'll send them a link later, as well as everyone that's on here. All righty, let's jump in. Let's talk version 6.1. That's where we're at now. And here we are. So there's Dan Gordon. All three of us will be on the call here. Dan Gordon, CEO, co-founder. Scott Miller, who is our VP of engineering, will be doing some of the demo. And I'll be the kind of the person to spearhead everything as the VP of sales.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay, so here we are about MyWorkDrive. What we're going to do, by the way, as far as housekeeping things, everyone is muted till the end, and as Scott mentioned earlier, but for those who are joining, we have a Q&A area. We prefer you to use that over the chat, and we'll address everyone's questions. We've left enough time that we certainly can do that. And so, save your questions up till the end or type them in as you think about them, and we'll address them all. So what is MyWorkDrive? Secure file remote access from any OS stored on any platform without vendor lock-in. That'd be my 30-second elevator pitch. Types of customers, we have all types of customers. Universities, big ones that you would recognize. We have sport teams. We have the Boston Celtics, United Way. So we have nonprofits. We have government, pretty much enterprise, governments, higher education, healthcare. We're seeing some of our sectors really getting active. And the reason for that is the more secure you need to be, the better we look. So with all of these restrictions, things like GDPR, HIPAA, FINRA, all of these, even federal government restrictions, we like I said, the better we look real good, the better security you need. Next, please. What is MyWorkDrive? I kind of just said that, but we'll go into that a little more, and then we'll do a demo. MapDrive security features. This is what I'm really excited about. This is new. We've always had data leak prevention in our web client through the browser, but now we do the same functionality through the MapDrive. So for those that are used to the MapDrive experience, they can leverage the DLP. Very, very exciting feature. It took us a while to do, but we've done a really good job on that. Then we're going to go into the roadmap, what's coming later this year into 2022, and then Q&A at the end. What is MyWorkDrive? Again, secure. File share, remote access. By the way, let me just stop here. So there's new people for sure. This is the largest attendee list we've ever had in the webinars. So there's new people that have no exposure to MyWorkDrive, and then there's our trusted, valued customers that we currently have. So we're going to quickly go over for the new people and hit on what's new for our current customers. So we'll be a little out of order from what I would do for new customers, but we'll cover it all. And feel free to schedule something if you want a deeper dive later on. We'll show you how to do that. So instantly add cloud file sharing capabilities to Windows file shares without VPN syncing or migrating data. That's a mouthful, but it's pretty neat in what we can do. No VPN support for larger organization. That's a costly savings actually, because there's a lot, not so much to implement, but to support. It can be very costly to support VPNs. Don't need it with us. We're as secure, if not more secure. And then you don't have to sync data. The data that we access is where your data lives today, be it in Azure, AWS, on-prem, so you don't have to migrate the data. And that's worth saying when we get below to the second paragraph about vendor lock-in. There is none. I actually came from an organization that did do sync and share, and people said, well, what if we don't want to do this anymore? We'd say, well, we'll give you a quote on how to get your data back. Not to worry, with us, the data lives where it lives. So it's better security and control using existing infrastructure, no vendor lock-in or storing files in databases. little overview. This is where I may need help. I think I do a fairly good job at it from the sales perspective, but if I miss anything, Dan and Scott will jump in. Here would be, this is your server environment today. Again, so it's Windows shares. Everything we do is based on Active Directory and underlying NTFS permissions. So we leverage what's already out there. So here's shares, SMB, NAS, Active Directory. Again, on-prem, Azure, AWS could be there. Through SMB, you actually drop a MyWorkDrive server into the environment, and through SMB, we see what's going on here. Important to note, there is nothing on this MyWorkDrive server as far as your data, and no databases, no users, no groups, no anything like that. You've already got that today in your current environment. All you do is drop a virtual machine with MyWorkDrive software on it, and we have IIS already built into that. And when you start it up and add it to the domain, we see here, we see all, and we deliver it through HTTPS to any of our clients, be it the desktop client, the map drive, via mobile, or via the browser. So all of those clients, strictly HTTPS. And when you think about it, the way we do it, the ports that you open up with VPN, there's lots of them. And you're kind of opening up the candy store when people come in. You're giving them the keys, so to speak. With us, very, very minimal. It's 2 or 3 ports that you have to open. So that's very, very good to note. Anything you guys want to add, Dan or Scott, on what I said?
Oh, great job, Rick. You got it.
Yep.
That's great for the CEO. So secure remote access, again, web browser. We have these 3 clients. We're going to concentrate on the map drive, which is the new functionality. We'll go over the web browser, that functionality, which always had a DLP, but now, again, I'm excited about adding this. And mobile, we will talk about mobile, but not so much show it. If you have an environment where you need mobile, you'd probably want to schedule something with me, and we'll go over that real quick. Office 365, I like to call this our claim to fame. We at MyWorkDrive, we work and collaborate with Office 365 files. That's, so we like to say we work with the day-to-day files. Now, as I kind of mentioned already, no migration required to leverage online editing. That's very important. I can't tell you how many prospects and customers we have that say, we can't move this data, and we want it to be right where it is. Well, that's what that means right there. Co-editing, all the functionality you have in Office documents is there. It's going to be based on your underlying NTFS permissions, as you would expect. Edit documents online directly from the browser, the map drive, or mobile client. Again, ease. You're going to see in our current customers that became customers, because of the ease of use and the functionality we have, is very easy. No training going to be required, as you see. Demo. Okay, here we go. I'm going to hand this over to Scott, who is our head of engineering, and he's going to discuss the DLP from the map drive perspective. So, and then when we come back, I'll do the web client, and then Dan's going to talk about Office Online integration, which has been changed. I should say it's been enhanced, and then we'll go from there. Okay, Scott, run with it.
Great. I will let go of the screen and switch it over to Scott.
And everyone should have a desktop.
Yes, sir.
Windows, traditional Windows desktop. I'm actually going to go a little bit out of order in that I want to show you guys the map drive client, or the web client first, because this is something we've had, right? Existing customers, obviously you recognize our web client interface here. We've had DLP in the web client for literally years. A lot of you may not be using it, but I just want to show it to you real quick. I'm going to log in with a regular user and just show you what the standard experience is. Certainly, if you've never seen MyWorkDrive, you'll get to see it here for just a minute in real life. This is a real server. You can see I'm typing. It's not a deck or a video. And I've logged into our demo server. This user, Samantha, has a couple of shares. Again, these are, this is not migrated data. This is what's living on this MyWorkDrive server's file server underneath, as Rick showed in that previous slide. And if I operate with a file. In this case, I'm going to edit it. I'm going to double click it, edit it. Now this is a traditional user, no restrictions, no DLP. You can see I'm passed right over to Office 365 and I can go straight into editing. And of course, any other file type you want, we have a built-in viewer for. I could just view it online. It just works. I've got, downloads and right clicks and things. Rick's going to go through a bunch of the rest of these features later on to talk about how that stuff works. But if I log in as a user who has DLP enabled, which I'll show you after I show you the map drive, how that works. And of course, we've had this. This is not new. This is just a refresher for y'all. So now we're in as Scott, who has restrictions on the demo share. You can control this message. You don't actually have to show it if you don't want to, but we like it shown because it's a reminder, right, that I have restrictions. Again, I see that same list of files, the image that I clicked on, the market definition doc. But when I operate with this file, I don't get passed to Office 365. I get passed to our viewer and I get watermarking. So I can give users the ability to interact with the files, right? I can read this. I can do work against it. I can evaluate it, but I can't change it. And most importantly, I can't remove it. There's no clipboard. There's no downloading. There's no printing. When you get into the menus, I've lost most of my abilities to delete. My share is limited to just being able to share with other members of the organization. I can't send it outside. So that's DLP, right? And of course, if you go into an image, I'll pull that same image up again. You'll see I again get the watermarking. Now, one option you can do is you can allow, again, alluding to what Rick talked about with Office 365, you can allow Office document editing within DLP. So that's a sub option, and I'll show you that when we go to the configuration screen. Now, again, we've always had this in the I don't always, but we've had this for years in the web client. Lots of people use it and love it. We added it to the mobile client, and I was thinking a minute ago, it's kind of a shame we don't show the mobile client because our Office online editing is so much better in the current version of the mobile client with our migration from WAPI to the Graph API. But we added it to the mobile client in version 6. We've now brought it to the desktop, which, as Rick said, people are super excited about. So let me get into that. Again, for those of you who are clients or have been a demo, this is our standard MapDrive client interface. I'm going to again log in as Samantha, who's that totally unrestricted user. This will be familiar to everyone who's a current user or who's seen the demo. I have those same drives. I have those same folders and documents. But if I operate on it, I get desktop Word. Again, this user is in unrestricted mode. So I could take this document out. I can copy documents in, right? No problem. That one already exists. But if I go into the new stuff, which is, let me log out of the client, log back in as myself, who has restrictions. Still have my share, right? But now when I go into it, it's restricted. But it's still Windows Explorer. It's the same familiar interface. The user still has the same ability to get to the files, find them, see them. Training shouldn't be a big deal. But now I don't have the ability to do all of those cut, copy, paste, print. Save a copy is our internal templating system. If I save a copy, it just is going to create another template on there, another file on the server. This is good for read-only documents where you've maybe got people. We actually created this in conjunction with a client who had templates they didn't want overwritten, so they made them read-only on the file system, and we integrated to save a copy functionality so they could make a copy of it, then edit the copy. Anyway, overselling that, but I can't drag in and out, right? I'll bring this thing in again. It doesn't even try. You actually see a you can't do that message on there. Now, if I want to operate with this, just like the web client, so here's what we expect. Loads it with the watermarks. You can see it, but you can't operate with it again. No cut, copy, print, paste, any of those things. And if you go into, like I say, a regular document, that we'll do that image again, loads it online. Now you can, okay, so before I go into the admin, let me also say this fully exists for the Mac as well. So those of you who actually, we had it done on the Mac side a little bit earlier. Those of you who are Mac shops or have Mac OS users, this works exactly the same for the Mac OS. It's in Finder. You get the share mounted. Of course, Mac doesn't do drive letters, but you get the share mounted as a volume. You double click it, you get taken over to that restricted view. And again, you've got the limitations that are in here exactly the same. So you can give the users the files, but they can't take them out of the environment. Let me show you the administration side of this briefly. This is, again, our standard server software. Nothing special, no special deck here. Because we added a couple things in here to the DLP that you'll want to see. Now, the DLP feature, for those of you who may have the software, may have seen this, is in Enterprise. You radio it on in Enterprise, and you've got the ability to control that watermark text. Once you turn DLP on, then when you go into shares and you edit a share, this is that demo share you've seen me working in all morning here. When you go in and edit a share, forgive me, I got to get this to, somebody's calling me. When you go into edit a share now, you've got these radio buttons for download and Office Online Edit, and you can globally apply these to the share, but you've also now got this functionality in our granular view. This granular view was new in version 6. So if you're an older customer, you may not have seen this yet, or maybe you haven't upgraded, and you've got the ability to turn this on by user and group. So you could see when I was logging in, I didn't have Office Online Edit enabled, so I didn't get that functionality, but I could, right? And I could say, all right, so I don't have the ability to download, but I can edit in Office Online. And when you're editing in Office Online, you can use some of those new security tools that Dan's going to talk about a little bit around like a SharePoint mode and even some of the other editors to restrict some of the functionality you can get with Office Online Editing. So you can even get some restrictions in there as well, alongside simply not downloading. Anything else, Rick, or
Couple of things
you'd
Scott?
like to offer on this? Sure.
Yeah, one was when you logged in for our current customers, they know it, but we didn't talk about single sign-on, that we support all of those. When Scott went in initially on the web browser or here, he got challenged for login, but there it is, single sign-on. So if you do have that, you can do all of that. And again, that's for the new people. We've got a whole list of everything that we support. So, you know, just again, for the new people that we have that. So, and the other thing was the logs. When Scott talked about all of the DLP, again, for the new people, we have logs, and those logs contain all of that information of who was reading, who was writing, who was logging in, logging off. So it's very important from the DLP perspective to have this kind of logging information. And you know, Scott knows a lot more of these, but Elk, Splunk, Sumo, things like that, you just point them to the location on the server of this file, and you can interrogate that stuff. Other than that, that's it, Scott.
Right. Logs are stored as text and XML files and are machine and user readable. So if you need more advanced access to them, and this is the, you know, this is what we did in the last,
there you go,
5 minutes or so, reading files, logging in, the paths we browsed, etc.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, if you have any questions on that, feel free to, because that's a lot of the stuff Scott showed was new. Scott, if you can drive me just back real quick to the web client.
I think I closed that when I had the problem opening the file. So let me just log in again. Yeah.
And again, as we have, you got to have Active Directory, of course, and underlying NTFS permissions, which you already have today. There's nothing that you need to do once you install MyWorkDrive other than say what shares you want exposed to, and if you want to put DLP functionality on top of that for remote access only. So what you're looking at here, again, Scott went over it, so my demo here is going to be very short. This is a list. So when you notice when Scott logged in as Samantha and as Scott, he had a different view. So this is what I can see with my user ID. Again, it's based on my underlying NTFS permissions. Notice, so yeah, if you click on that mark, just single click on that, notice this ribbon. I call it a dynamic ribbon because I have permissions to do everything. I can drag files here. I can edit them. So I can do all of these things. Now, if someone was in DLP mode or had some other kind of restrictions, this would go away possibly. Maybe they can't download, maybe they can't upload, maybe they can't share things here. This is wide open. I can share things here. When Scott showed you DLP, it was only share internally. And you can turn a lot of these things off globally, or, as Scott showed you in the DLP, you can do it individually by files, by shares, by users. Other than that, and this is a file explorer view. Always keep in mind, especially for those security-minded folks, nothing came to this machine, nothing to the client machine. This is all, I call this a directory listing in my nomenclature, I guess, and that's really all it is. Scott talked about the viewer in here. A couple things here that are very nice. Say, well, yeah, if you double click on this, it's going to open up in Office 365. Well, you know what, we haven't quite implemented Office 365, so we'll call you later. Well, the nice news is if you right click on this and you say edit in local app, that is going to open up in your local Word. So we kind of have the beauty of both worlds, where from here you can open up locally if you choose, or in Office 365. It's going to challenge you one time to log in to make sure you're a user, and there you are. So you could do that. So that's a very nice piece of functionality. And we have the same thing in the map drive. The map drive, you can say, I don't have local Office on my machine, but I do have Office 365. So when you install a client, you can say, yeah, always open my documents in Office 365. I can avoid having to have a license of E3 and just E1, or some call it F3, F1, but you get the idea on that. Notice here that I am showing the home drive. You can choose to do that per person. Obviously, Scott's and Samantha's home drive is going to be different, but you can choose at the administration level to show people's home drives. Quick mention here, guest sharing. We have guest sharing as well, where maybe, as I mentioned, you got to have somebody in Active Directory in order for all of this to work. Well, with guest sharing, and we can go over that with you because the configuration one time, once it's done, it's done, but it's usually, we can be helpful with that. You can actually invite somebody with an email address to participate in a particular share. Think of a drug company that works with pharmacies. They don't have all those pharmacies in Active Directory, but they can invite them to share in a share that would be unique to them, ABC Pharmacy, something like that. So I think I fairly well covered all of this. Again, it's File Explorer-like. Training, no, that don't really need it. As you can see, you can pick this up right away. And we have people that like this interface, and that's what they want. Large customers, this is the interface they like. We have other large customers that turn this off and only use the map drive. So you can choose all of that at the administrator level. Anything I left out on this, guys?
I'd like to know, but there's one thing I'd like to reinforce, which is something that you brought up. And that is when you're using either the map drive or the mobile or the web client, the files live on the server, and what the client gets, regardless of what the client is a picture of what's there, until or unless they operate on a file. So although I can see these files and they look like they're in Windows Explorer, they're actually just pictures through the file system driver, or in this case, through the restricted client driver, and nothing happens. And again, if you're in restricted mode, it never comes to the machine, because that's the idea behind restricted mode. But if I'm in my home folder, and I go to double click this file, because there's no restrictions on the home folder, this, now this will come to the machine in memory, resident memory, and any cache files Word writes underneath. We don't interrupt that process, but that's all that in air quotes left the file server. And that's part of the reason why editing in Office Online is so exciting, because you can avoid moving it to the local machine and you can just move it to Office Online, or the DLP, you can not move it at all, and then it just stays, because the DLP is referencing those viewers are on the MyWorkDrive server, so it's all staying in the environment.
Yeah, the only thing else I might point out that occurs to me is that this is all scriptable as well, and can be pushed out using group policies or other scripting engines. And you'll notice on the left, they have multiple drive letters. No other vendors support that. So you can actually mirror your existing system that people would have been doing internally to match exactly so that there becomes zero training around all of that. And of course, as Scott and Rick mentioned, we also support SAML as well. So you can literally get to the point where you're pushing out the drive letters, you're pushing out the software itself, and the users, even the URL to the MyWorkDrive server can be pasted in there to where the user just literally clicks on the MapDrive client, or you can even script it to put it in their startup. So we're really building this for enterprises in multiple ways. And obviously we can't go through all of that in today's demo, but there's a lot of stuff underneath here that it just looks simple, but we've built in a lot of things with being in the industry for 25, 30 years each. These are the things that we think about as being an IT administrator, having supported folks in the past.
A good time to mention the resources on our help desk and our support site. There's a client administrator guide that'll walk you through all of the scripting options for an EXE or an MSI, whether you want to push it out, as Dan mentioned, by a group policy, or you're going to put it into some device management tool set. And SSO, there's a summary document which explains all of the built-in options, the built-in configurations, as well as how to do it manually for, I don't even know, there's probably 20 different SSOs we've helped or seen clients deploy, Ping Federate, Shibboleth, Rapid Identity. Goodness, IBM has one, Google, Salesforce, RSA has opened one up. So, just lots of options, but all of that is here. And yeah, to both Dan and Rick's point, I think we could spend an hour on just about any one of these topics that we're touching on, from guest sharing to configuring SSO to Office 365. But we just want to give you a little bit of the flavor. We're not going to try and dig you through the entire thing, because obviously that's not relevant. Some clients, they don't want to use SSO, or they already know how to configure Azure AD. They don't need a deep dive on that, but want to make sure these features are out there. If you're existing, want to make sure you can take advantage of them. All of our upgrades are free, so it's not like it's going to cost you anything to get this. If you're already in as an enterprise customer using an enterprise license, it's just upgrade to the latest version, you'll have it.
Right, and we'll follow this up with a server setup video update, and that'll cover a lot of the deep dive on some of these features that in order to be able to enable those as well.
And thank you to the couple people who have popped in with questions. We will take time to answer those in just a bit.
Great. All right, Dan, if you could take that thing, get us back to the slide deck, that would be outstanding. There we are. So we talked about the DLP mapped client. We talked about the web client, the nuances of everything in there. And I should say functionality, not nuances. And then Office Online integration. Dan's going to talk about that. This is huge, as well as the DLP being huge. And Dan will start going with that. We have new options that we never had before, and you can actually choose your security level. So, okay.
Great, thanks, Rick. And before I jump into some deeper dive around how Office Online integration works, just kind of review some of the security features that we have talked about, or that that are existing that customers can take advantage of. As we mentioned, we support single sign-on. We also support Duo as a two-factor mechanism. On top of using any SAML provider, which would have its own two-factor authentication built in. We have things like file type blocking and alerting that can be put in. So if something's happening, someone's downloading a lot of files, something is changing a lot of files, you can be alerted on all of that stuff. And of course, it's logged as well. New to 6.1 is and 6.0 is new granular permissions. Scott kind of went over some of that, where you could see that you could potentially block people from downloading, but yet still allow them to edit a document in Office Online. Something we didn't mention in the demo is we also support pre-auth for identity providers. And really what that is for something like Intune, where you have conditional access, you can lock down the MyWorkDrive server so that users can't even get to the MyWorkDrive server URL before they're approved by conditional access as a approved device, and so that URL is just simply not available, and that's supported in the MapDrive client as well as the web client. So that's something that's unique to MyWorkDrive that you won't see anywhere else. Data leak prevention, encrypted view, and watermarks. We talked about all of that. And DLP protected MapDrive access, of course, that is new. And we just slightly touched on the ability to guest user folder sharing collaboration. That's integrating with Azure B2B policies that Microsoft has created in order to be able to let people outside of the company collaborate on a share without you sending them things like links and that could be passed around. And they can literally work side by side with your team as though they're a member of the company within a particular share that you lock them down to. So it's a lot more collaborative than simply sending links around for individual files. Office Online editing options. So that was big in 6.1. As Scott mentioned, we moved away from the WAPI stuff with Microsoft Cloud Storage Provider Program and built our own integration using the Azure Graph API updates that are now available, and there are several things that are new with that. So as it worked out, we were actually able to give customers more options and more control than they had before. And all of this is available to all customers within Azure, so it won't be ever changing down the road. In fact, it will just be continued to be enhanced. The default option that we make available that's super easy is Office 365 OneDrive integration that allows you to stage a file into the user's OneDrive account. You lock it down to within your domain in Azure, Azure AD, and the file is edited and then placed back on the MyWorkDrive server and then removed. That also even uses our Cloudflare integration to protect your MyWorkDrive server and do the staging. So all of that's fully automated, and we have an approved app within Azure as well. So really it's just click a couple of buttons, make sure some ports are open for Cloudflare, and it works out of the box. So a lot of companies choose to use that. We also have an option for Office 365 using a SharePoint site that you create and manage that is locked down only to SharePoint admins within your company, as well as a Azure AD service that the MyWorkDrive server has rights to. And no users are allowed to do anything to that site. They can't go to that site. They can't share things. You can lock things down to any files that get staged there are not available from the user perspective to be shared outside or even between users. It literally is a very locked down scenario that you can use and still leverage your Office 365 services without having to manage a server internally yourself to do that work. We do offer a couple of other options. If you don't want the file to leave your organization at any time, you can use our Office Online local server option that we've always had, and that hasn't changed. That is based on the WAPI protocol. Any customers with Office licenses can set that up with internally and point their MyWorkDrive server to it, and now the file is put on that local server that's completely always remaining behind all of your existing infrastructure, never goes out to the organization whatsoever. And we also added OnlyOffice. OnlyOffice is an open source based option to be able to do Office document editing in a browser. It's fully compatible with the Microsoft XML formats for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We're really excited to be able to add that to our portfolio and give customers every option that they would ever want or need from security and a functionality perspective with Office Online. And next, we're just going to get into roadmap. So we've got some things coming up. I'll talk about the first one and then pass some stuff back and forth between Scott and I. Client device approval is coming up. We've made some strides on that in the past, and we had to put some things off from a timing standpoint. So, but we've that should be coming out fairly quickly. That'll give customers the ability to be able to lock down what devices can talk to their MyWorkDrive server, and a unique device ID that's tied to the hardware on that device will be created on the install, let's say the MapDrive client, and devices can be, approval can be required in order to be able to talk to the MyWorkDrive server, and the administrator can then approve or deny those devices, as well as just be able to see them within the admin panel, which is, we're really excited about that. I think as we move towards a more secure way of being able to provide remote access, prevent malware, this is the things that we're thinking about in terms of our roadmap going forward.
Improved file validation is really driven by the changing security landscape and an increasing incidence of security products that are altering files as they move to and from the MyWorkDrive infrastructure. Essentially what we're seeing happen is antivirus programs and WAFs and border security and endpoint security are scanning and subtly making changes to the packets as we pass them back and forth. And what that results in is damaged files, missing files, incorrectly saved files, files that report that can't be opened, things of that nature that really aren't, you know, they're not something MyWorkDrive has done wrong, but we're kind of a victim of other things that are going on. And improved file validation is an effort that we started. We started it really simply saying, well, maybe we can just, for lack of, let me just oversimplify it, maybe we can just check some of the file as we save it. And what that's turned into is sort of an end-to-end review of, you know, the common term is end-to-end encryption, which we have, but it's really not encryption. It's really validation as files move within the network, you know, as they move from the file server to the MyWorkDrive server, they move from the MyWorkDrive server out to the client or out to Office 365. We want to be more aggressive about auditing the integrity of that file and reporting back to the user so that we can say it failed and here's exactly where it failed. So when a member of our support team takes a call of, hey, you know, hey, we have a problem, where it's not, I've so far likened it to, you know, exploratory surgery, where it's like, okay, well, let's look at all the pieces and places where this could potentially go wrong. We want to get to the point where we have a very pinpoint target. I can say, okay, the file transaction failed going from the file share to the MyWorkDrive server. What's there? Oh, there's a new, you know, a new auditing tool on the file share, or we move the file shares behind a firewall. Okay, well, we know that that's most likely the problem and we can pinpoint it. So that's an initiative we've undertaken. As I said, we started small, and as we brainstormed and really the entire team has looked at this, and as we typically do when we try to bring new features on board, is involve everyone from all different disciplines to get all of our voices. We've discovered it could be bigger than that. So this is probably one that will come out in pieces, and we'll probably have some core elements done in 6.2, 6.3, and then there'll be some bigger ones as they continue to come. And, you know, as we always do, sorry, I'm taking an extra minute, Dan. As we always do, we'll look to bring them to the lowest version that we possibly can. And we're not averse to bringing features to current production releases. We're not an organization that, you know, holds things as big marketing surprises. We try to get them in the hands of our customers because we know how valuable they are, and we know how valuable they are to us. So if it's something we can bring early, we will, and you'll be hearing about it.
Okay, great. And we're also going to be adding in 6.2 improved and customized language support. So we're going to be adding 3 or 4 more languages. We're also going to allow customers to be able to customize language phrases within the MyWorkDrive server as well as the web client. We're going to be it looks like the road that we're going down is going to be very simple for customers. They can download a template on Excel. It'll have the existing, and they can go through and edit themselves and run a little script to be able to import that. And then our plan is to have that to be maintained going forward with any upgrades as well.
The native Finder and Explorer alternatives or replacements. This is one that really got sort of put to us because of the changes that those of you who are a Mac shop and are looking at the M1 processors and the new versions of Mac OS, you'll probably have sort of run into this already, where they've they've increased the security and they made it really difficult to add file system extensions to do things like integrate into Finder. And of course, we have a similar thing going on over on the Windows side. We use drivers to get into those. And what we found is we can potentially replace those completely and go exclusively with our client. That'll give us improved performance. It'll give us more control, kind of like the migration. Dan mentioned the migration from the legacy WAPI to the new Graph API method for Office Online editing, which opened up a whole new world of controls, security features, and even the ability to do third-party tools like OnlyOffice. Well, we're looking at the same sort of thing where we'll be able to give you more control over what users can do on the install clients the same way we do in the web client. So we're really excited about that. The macOS Finder replacement is really far along. Might see a beta of that before the end of the year. The Explorer alternative, we're still working on, so that one's not quite as far along, but committed to both of them.
And another initiative that we're working on is to be able to give customers the ability to stage updates for the MapDrive client so that they can be pushed out from the MyWorkDrive server with whatever version the customer chooses. So you wouldn't automatically be forced to take whatever updates we're pushing. You would be able to put in the MyWorkDrive MapDrive clients and stage them from your own MyWorkDrive server, and then they would be then pushed down to those individual clients when they log in. So we're going to be taking a look at that in 6.2 very shortly as well. Just to follow up, I'm going to be switching it over to Rick, and he's just going to go through a few slides to talk about just a quick review. We will be making this slide deck available. There's some links that are included in some of the notes, one of which is a link around Office Online, various options that I discussed. That has there's a whole chart that we have available on our support site that tells you what is the impact between each version and the complexity and security around each. That's all going to be included in the slide deck as well. So we'll just include these just to kind of as a review. Let's just switch over to that.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. So yeah, just to reiterate, what I kind of see as the highlights of 6.1 is the DLP from the MapDrive client. So here's just a screen capture of that, right? So here's how it works from the MapDrive. You can just open it up and there you go. So here's your files. This is actually from the Mac client. The previous one was from the Windows client. So we have both. As Scott mentioned, we did a lot of work to make all of that work. And the highlight is the DLP right on that. So that's a takeaway for both new and current customers of what 6.1 brings to you. Next slide is the DLP server configuration. Scott spent some time on this, which we got pretty granular with the DLP functionality. You can say web client, maybe mobile isn't important to you. You can turn that off globally, or you can turn it off at the share level. So you can do a lot of dynamic things here with the DLP server, with the configuration within the server itself. And next, as we talked about, we've got all of these options that came about the past, 2 or 3 months, more options than you ever had. As Dan talked about, Office Online OneDrive, that's the default out of the box, very easy to set up. When you download our software, you choose that and pretty much away you go. The other one is Online Office Online Local Server, which does still support that WAPI protocol if that's what you want to do. We have a lot of customers that want to say, yeah, we don't want anything to leave our environment at all, and they would use that. So they're almost in the security level. And Dan talked about Office Online SharePoint service and only Office. So again, another takeaway that we have more options than we ever had for Office Online editing. Next. there we go. Questions. Here we sales@myworkdrive.com. That'll come to everyone here, and we'll get back to you very quickly. And find us on the web on myworkdrive.com. If we've compelled the people that are new to request a personal demo, just go to myworkdrive.com. It says ask for a demo. I will automatically, you can schedule what works for you and go from there. So, which I hope we've compelled enough people and excited our current customers. So yeah, let's go at this point to, I saw we had several questions come in, so we'll let our experts, Dan and Scott, take those.
Yeah, we've got 3 really great questions.
Good.
Yeah, it looks like the first question is around the MapDrive client, using it internally versus externally. That's something that we do have customers that use that and have various mechanisms that they'll use in order to be able to support that. Number one, you could just run it full-time internally. And of course, our support documents recommend that you create an internal DNS entry so that if your users end up on the LAN in your organization, that they're automatically redirected to the internal MyWorkDrive server, not going out and back in again. So just from that perspective alone, a lot of customers are finding that the MyWorkDrive for the certain types of workers is fine even internally. I know some companies have looked at various ways of creating scripts, and with the MapDrive client, you can do things such as, kill the existing MapDrive client, map a traditional client if that's what you want to do. We do support that. There is that option within the MapDrive client. We did explore at one point, I believe, looking at could we auto detect, are they in the office versus out of the office, and that didn't pan out in terms of our ability to really do that dynamically and switch people back and forth between SMB and MyWorkDrive. And ultimately what it turned out is customers really want to use MyWorkDrive because they only want to have things being going through the MyWorkDrive server, which is only HTTPS, so that way it's a zero trust type of setup, and you're not exposing SMB on the LAN to things like ransomware and everything else. So we're focusing our efforts on always improving the speed that we can do as much as possible in terms of uploads and downloads on the MapDrive to make it as comparable as we can, for those types of users.
Yeah, I think the bottom line answer to that question is simply yes. Absolutely, you can. Let me take the next one, which is a question about data room. And this is a really good question. I like this question. Thinking about it from a perspective, the question is, can you use MyWorkDrive as a data room? Data room being a secure storage environment where, files are. Historically, it was an actual physical room where, during sensitive business negotiations, documents related to the negotiation, like a labor contract negotiation or a merger and acquisition, something were stored. And if you think about that from a virtual sense, yeah, you could absolutely do that with MyWorkDrive. I was actually thinking about that previous slide with granular permissions. The way I would set that up, it would be a combination of the tools in MyWorkDrive. I think you'd use granular permissions to limit the ways that users can access. You might only give them the web client. You might not give them MapDrive and mobile. You'd probably use guest user access. You'd set up Azure AD, you'd use Microsoft's built-in B2B. You'd invite the third parties you want in. Inviting them in gives you the ability to let in outsiders on their own credentials, so you don't have to manage IDs or credentials or anything of that matter. They become AD users, so you can set expiration or you can manually expire them. You can also delete them from the shares from within MyWorkDrive, and then you just create the shares you want to be part of that data room. So the answer to that, again, I think the simple answer to that question is yes. You can use within the structure of the tools. Of course, you can limit document file types. You could give some people write access and some people not. You can put DLP on there. I don't think I mentioned DLP, but the combination of things I would use would be granular permissions, DLP, and guest user access. And yeah, that would be an exciting thing to do. I'm sure someone's done it. We've had financial institutions reach out to us about using. In fact, I think some are using I defer to Rick on that. The tools within MyWorkDrive and things like guest user access to grant access to clients to time-sensitive documents and short-term documents in ways that are secured without going, to the end of the earth of, physical presence. So that's kind of a cool question.
Cool, and I'll take the final one as an Office 365 user. I have everything in the cloud. Will the free version of Azure AD limit what functions can be used? From a MyWorkDrive perspective, we don't care. What we do know is that if you wanted to use things like Office 365 as, let's say, a user who has only the online version, that absolutely works with MyWorkDrive servers. You can use it within the MapDrive client. You can use it within the web client. Microsoft, of course, requires that users do have a license for Office Online as a minimum in order to be able to do those edits. From our perspective, from a login perspective and things like that, that's really up to you. You can use Azure AD as single sign-on. I know that on the free versions of Azure AD, they're more limited in terms of what you can lock down things to with two-factor and things like that. So that's more of a Microsoft issue than it is from a MyWorkDrive perspective. You can certainly use single sign-on with MyWorkDrive, even with free versions of Azure AD. You just are limited in terms of what policies you can apply on the Microsoft, Azure side of things. And it looks like we have one more that popped in, Scott.
Yeah, and I have a question that came directly to me too that I want to address. So don't let me forget to mention that after I talk about this one about versions and directories. So MyWorkDrive, the question is about the display of files and displaying things when users don't have access. And the idea being, if you want to give a user exclusively a subfolder of a directory, will they still be able to see everything else that's in the directory? And MyWorkDrive uses NTFS permissions. So if you have your NTFS permissions configured correctly, you can generally prohibit access and editing and viewing of files and folders. MyWorkDrive is not ABE. We're not access-based enumeration. So you can't, we're not going to hide things that NTFS would, if you were to use effective access, would show you as having permissions of. And the specific question was if we've changed that over the course of versions. The user notes a version that's about 6 or 7 versions back. And no specific changes there, though we are always optimizing our queries both on our NTFS lookups and our LDAP queries. So it's possible things change there for the better for them, but no specific efforts. But at the end of the day, if you look at what a user can do with effective access on the file system, it's going to mirror MyWorkDrive pretty closely. The other question I got, which I want to address, is about upgrading and how hard or easy it is to upgrade. And it's really easy. If you ping us on our support at MyWorkDrive, or just go to myworkdrive.com/support and submit a ticket, we'll send you a link to a couple of these articles. But essentially, upgrading is as easy as downloading the installer from our website, which is at the downloads button at the top of myworkdrive.com. The server software does require a portal account. Your portal account is not the one that it's not your purchase account. It's not your license account. It's not your accounting account. If you don't have a portal account, if you're new to the team and MyWorkDrive was pre-existing and you're just charged with updating it, just create a portal account. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Download the server software on the server and essentially run it. And that's really all you have to do. Now, those of us who've been around a while will take a snapshot, make a backup, those kind of things. But, we do this in our lab all the time, and very rarely do we have to roll back. So you're relatively safe doing that. When you run the installer, it will disconnect any active sessions and take the server offline. So don't do it Monday morning. You'll have a whole bunch of angry phone calls. Plan to do it during maintenance windows, during reboots. When the update is done, that update will take between 2 and 10 minutes, depending on the performance of your infrastructure. When it's done, just log back into the server, make sure it has its license. If it doesn't, you can reapply your license key. that is something I would have on hand before you start. And again, this is in our instructional guide. Just, double check that everything's there. Your shares are there. Your SSO settings are there, that kind of stuff. It all should be backed up and restored. Should be no problem. So upgrades, super easy. Like I said, Dan and I conservatively, I think we were kicking this around a couple weeks ago. We probably installed our server software 100,000 times because there are days when I might install it 20 times.
Well, and I also know that whenever we do an upgrade, we're backing up the config as well. So, we could literally get it down to where you've wiped out the entire MyWorkDrive server and take your config and get it back for you. So, that's a nice thing about the way we set that up. That was always one of the things that I hated about other software was all of a sudden you're putting things into SQL databases and doing all kinds of reg hacks and things like that to where it just became another support burden. We really want to eliminate that, right? There's nothing really that lives on the MyWorkDrive server. We even give you the option to back up your config to us. So if something did happen, we could potentially go get it for you.
I was just going to bring that up. Twice I've taken that phone call. None of us ever wants that phone call. I've lost everything help. And twice I've taken that phone call, once from someone whose server ran out of disk space because they had a poorly architect backup process. And once from someone who was going into, I can't remember if it was hurricane or blizzard, but one or the other, either Florida or Buffalo, for those of us who are stateside. But the cool part about it is you can download if you've backed up your config to us, which is an option during install and also an option on the settings page, you can call us and we can send you that config file. You can download the server software, you can install it. It'll prompt you for your key. You put it in. You've now got a licensed version. You can take the files we give you and restore them to the server and be 100% back up and running if you've got me on the phone, 15 minutes. So it's really not hard. Now, I'm not advocating any of you take a carefree approach to backup and redundancy just because I claim how easy it is. But if you do run into that situation, it is pretty easy to recover from, especially if you've backed your config files up to us. If you haven't, you got to recreate them, but hey, maybe then it takes an hour.
Cool. Well, that's great from a question and answer standpoint. Let Rick wrap it up, and thank you so much for attending, everybody.
Thank you, Dan. Wow, it's like we planned it. It's 9:58 California time, 2 minutes before the hour. I'd just like to finish up and thank everyone for attending, both current customers and quite a few potential new ones. Very happy about that. Something not on this slide is support@myworkdrive.com. Let's say you have a question, say, oh, shoot, I should have asked that. Feel free to support@myworkdrive.com. That will get you to Scott's team where you'll get your answer if you think of something that you didn't think of currently. Other than that, also for those people that are new, we tried to highlight what's there. Feel free. That's what I do. Go to myworkdrive.com, request a demo. If you want to know more about mobile, we can do a session just related to mobile, or do a typical complete overview of all of the clients, and I'll take you into the admin panel on how all of it works. So just wanted to throw that offer out there. And other than that, I'd like to thank Dan and Scott for their participation, and mostly everybody on the call here for attending.